Hi, everybody. I am Kelly Dunning. I'm here to talk to y'all about fish, my favorite topic. You know, we're called fish squeezers. Are there any other fish squeezers in the room with us today? Yes, Caleb, good to see you here. Proud fish squeezers. Before I get started today, I wanted to mention the students in my lab. I'm nothing without them and without the work that they do. And it's kind of a hard time to be a student that wants to go into the fish and wildlife world. A lot of previous pathways for training and building up that early career have vanished, including some of our most popular pathways like the Pathways Scholarship or the PMF. So I encourage everybody here to keep an eye on what's happening with that stuff, because it feels maybe really small across the suite of issues, but is really big for our early career scientists and students, especially students like mine in the Wildlife Wilderness Recreation Lab who want to go on to do public service. For our graduate students, we hire a lot of Peace Corps veterans, we hire a lot of military veterans, and these type of service-oriented students just had a lot of doors slammed in their face with the PMF going away, with the directorate fellows being diminished, with this big hiring freeze. So it's something that's on my mind, and it's something that I just wanted to mention. This is I've already had a great introduction, but if you're interested in my work, I put free PDF copies of all of my work for people that don't have $30 for an article or $100 for an academic book. They're all on my lab's website, so if you're interested, most of our books so far have been on kind of like participatory studies of coral reefs, like working with Southeast Asian or Floridian fishermen, how, especially in our Indonesian setting, we worked with a lot of dynamite fishermen. So transitioning over to these more sustainable methods of fishing into like ecotourism and stuff like that. And then here in the United States, we focus a lot on working with these recreational groups, hunters, anglers, young people, and we really do that because in the North American model of wildlife conservation, hunting and fishing licenses that each of us buy each year fund the majority of fish and wildlife conservation in the States. So I'm really worried about getting that next generation of hunters and anglers into the hunting and fishing community and kind of broadening that participation because, maybe 20 years ago, there was only one type of hunter-angler, and now we want kind of everybody to feel welcome in that world. So I'm going to shift gear a little bit and talk about trout. Trout are a cultural and economic cornerstone of the American West. These fish draw millions of anglers each year. They generate billions of dollars in revenue for us in rural economies through tourism, through recreational guiding, and through outdoor recreation. Beyond dollars, trout symbolize the wild character of Western rivers. They carry conservation value, particularly native species like Yellowstone cutthroat trout, Snake River fine-spotted cutthroat trout, Colorado cutthroat trout, which in this picture, it's a Colorado cutthroat. I'm very proud of this one. This was a Colorado cutthroat that you can see. Will this work? No. Oh, no. You can see the talon mark from where it was almost captured by a bird of prey. So this is like my favorite obvious catch and release there. So the Colorado cutthroat trout, and then the Bonneville cutthroat trout and the bull trout. So in Wyoming, cutthroat trout are especially prized, not only the state's native trout, but also just the centerpiece of outdoor recreation around fisheries in Wyoming, this Cut Slam program. It challenges anglers from all over the world to catch all 4 native cutthroat species in their home waters. And while you're doing that, learn about the ecology of the systems where you're harvesting the fish. So the Cut Slam includes the Bonneville cutthroat, the Colorado River cutthroat, the Snake River cutthroat, and the Yellowstone cutthroat. The program has become a celebrated cultural tradition. It does a great job at education and raising awareness about native species. It draws visiting anglers across the state. It boosts rural economies through travel, the guiding industry, and through gear sales. There's no better way to get to know a community that you're spending time in than just stopping in at your local fly shop, having a conversation about what people are catching fish with, and maybe spending 10, 20 bucks on some flies. I have a big problem where I go into a fly shop and I aim to spend $10 and I spend $100. And sometimes I pick up a new hunting rifle. So, it becomes a big purchase, but it's a really great way to just make friends in a community that you might not be a member of, or you're just kind of passing through. And it's a great way to enliven our local rural businesses. So by encouraging anglers to pursue these subspecies in habitat, the cut slam also underscores the ecological diversity of Wyoming's rivers and streams, from the high mountain freestones to the larger river systems, while highlighting the threats that these species face from things like drought, warming water, habitat fragmentation, and then competition with introduced species. Introduced species, so alongside our native trout, we have non-native introduced species. The rainbow trout, the brown trout, and the brook trout. I mean, these are incredibly beautiful, charismatic, popular recreational species, some of the most popular fish for anglers to go after in the world. And they sustain, like I said, many recreational fisheries. That fishing license that you buy goes directly into our conservation budget, but sometimes they do compete with and displace native trout. So the health of both native and stocked trout populations is tightly linked to environmental indicators, to climate change, and to river ecology and conservation efforts. Drought and shifting precipitation alter our stream flows. Our warming waters are a big issue. This looks differently between our freestone rivers, our tailwaters, and our reservoirs. What is she talking about? Freestone streams, these are natural rivers. We can recognize them very easily. They're dependent on snowmelt and rainfall, and they're among our most valuable and vulnerable ecosystems for going after trout. Now, tailwaters, these are located behind dams, and they benefit from these cooler dam-released flows, but the vegetation, the ecology does have an altered state to it that may be more amenable to species that are non-native. It depends on the context, but it's something to keep an eye on. And then reservoirs, they provide additional habitat. They're very popular to bring your kid fishing on a reservoir. It's a bit easier. But as the summer unfolds into the dog days of summer and the snowcap come off the mountains and it just gets very hot, the oxygen levels in those reservoirs get lower and lower, and they become kind of like less ideal places to target trout this time of year. So over time, many native trout populations have declined due to changing climate, due to climate variability. And while stocking programs have helped us to sustain abundant fisheries, trout abundance, our cultural traditions, our rural economies, and our communities are very closely tied to the way that we steward the water, steward the ecology of these systems, and steward these species that we really do love out here. I wanted to talk very briefly about this new NSF grant that we received in my lab, the Wildlife Wilderness Recreation Lab. We're working really closely with the National Lab of the National Science Foundation, so NSF-NCAR. If you've ever been hiking up in Boulder in the Flatirons, that beautiful, that's the Mesa Lab. That's an IMPay architectural wonder. You can kind of go in and have tours. It's really beautiful, but it's one of the preeminent labs for climate, for atmosphere, for Earth systems. And one of the most important things that they work on at NCAR is this big Earth simulation model called the Community Earth System 2 Large Ensemble Model. Big supercomputer model, can simulate any system on Earth that you are interested in. So we start with that Community Earth System 2 model, and then we couple that with ecology, evolutionary, genomics, biodiversity models. Then we bring the outputs of those models, kind of like the future predictions 20 years and 40 years down the line, to guiding companies, to individual guides, to tourism operators, to chambers of commerce, to anybody who depends on trout livelihoods and sustainability. And we bring our outputs to them and we say, how is this going to impact your livelihood? What kind of assistance do you need from federal, state, and local government to kind of stay afloat? And then we have, this is a very academic conclusion, but we have what's called a framework of multi-stakeholder governance, which just means how we can allow that public sector and our private sector to work together to assist people as the environment change over time. We have 2 University of Wyoming students who are really leading this project. I'm not leading it. The students really do all the work. Tommy Ferlin and Caleb. Caleb is here. Hello, Caleb. Caleb has some great experience working with the Greater Yellowstone ecosystem introduced lake trout population. So he's done some really impressive invasive species removal work, and he's going to bring that with him to this more interdisciplinary stakeholder work. We've already done this type of work before in our marine sanctuaries in Florida and Texas. So you can see the same flow of the science to the social science in our previous project. And the one thing that I want to end here with is we take those supercomputer outputs and we turn them into very simple stories that anybody can understand regardless of educational level and background. And we also couple them with pictures. So keep an eye on this picture. This is today's Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary. This is the Florida Keys National Marine Sanctuary 20 years from now, given changes in sea surface temperature, water quality. So we hand these to a commercial lobsterman, maybe with a high school education, and we don't need him to understand the outputs of a supercomputer model. We don't need him to talk about different SSP forcing mechanisms that we work with on the supercomputer. We have this very easy to follow, very sort of rich and short depiction of what the system is going to look like, because we want to hear from him. We want to hear what the system is going to do over time and how that impacts his livelihood and his family. And this is that output that we talk about, how are people being impacted over time? There's really amazing restorations going on. Fisheries are just picking up and moving north because the water is so hot. There's so much extra storminess and turbidity in the water that people are becoming Uber drivers in the month of June rather than dive tourism operators. So there's very serious recreational and commercial impacts that result from environmental change that we're beginning to uncover with some of this work. So that's it. I really hope that you enjoyed the little trout adventure that I had for you today, and I'm happy to take questions. Thank you. Okay.